There comes a time in life when you look around and realize you've achieved everything you wanted, but feel absolutely nothing. And today, you'll discover why this happens and how the people of a Japanese island with the happiest centenarians in the world found the answer. Have you ever stopped to think why some people have everything and are empty, while others have almost nothing and are overflowing with life? Why do some people make millions and take their own lives at 40, while fishermen in Okinawa wake up at 90 with a smile on their face, eager for the day? There's a Japanese word that the West only recently discovered, but that Okinawans have lived by for centuries: Ikigai. The reason to wake up every day. The purpose that makes you want to see the sun rise again. But here's the problem. When this word arrived in the West, we completely distorted its meaning. We turned it into just another productivity tool, just another four-circle diagram for finding the perfect job. And in the process, we completely missed the point. Because Ikigai isn't about a career. It's not about making money. It's about something much deeper and much scarier. It's about remembering why you exist when everything around you loses its meaning. And today, you'll learn the story of a guy who completely forgot his Ikigai and almost lost everything because of it. Before I tell you this story, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, like and comment. What is your Ikigai? What motivates you to wake up every morning and strive to be better? If you still don't know what your Ikigai is, maybe this video can help you. I want to take this moment to thank all of you who are here following the channel, commenting, sharing and subscribing. I am very grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you very much for your affection and attention. Now, let's get back to the video. Chapter 1. The Awakening of the Void. The story I'm about to tell you happened to a guy named Michael. Michael grew up in a lower middle-class family in rural America. His father was a mechanic. His mother was a secretary. 3 brothers shared a room. You know the story. Michael was 12 when his father lost his job. He still remembers his mother crying in the kitchen, trying to decide between paying the electricity bill or buying food. He remembers his father sitting on the porch, staring into space, that look of a defeated man. That day, Michael made a promise to himself, a promise that would change his entire life, but not in the way he imagined. I will never let my family go through that again. This promise became fuel. Michael studied obsessively for years. He won 2 scholarships. He graduated with a degree in engineering. He joined a tech startup right after college. He worked 16-hour days, weekends, non-existent, holidays, the opportunity to work without interruption. His friends would say, "Man, you need to slow down." His girlfriend would plead, "You're never there." He would always say the same thing: "You guys don't understand. I have a family to take care of." 5 years later, the startup was sold. Michael was 28 years old and had $3.2 million in his bank account. The promise he made at age 12 was fulfilled. He had won. He bought his mother a house. He paid off his father's debts. He put his brothers through college. That night, alone in his apartment, Michael sat on the couch and waited for happiness to arrive. It never came. He had everything he ever wanted. And for the first time in his life, he no longer knew why he woke up in the morning. What Michael didn't know was that he had just fallen into the trap that devours millions of people every year. He had turned a means into an end. Before, money was just a tool to take care of his family. But somewhere along the way, money became the goal. And here's the scariest thing about goals. When you achieve them, you lose the purpose that drove you. Michael didn't stop, because stopping would mean facing emptiness. So he started again. New company, new goals, 10 million, then 20, then 50. He married Sarah at 30. A beautiful ceremony. They honeymooned in Bali. 2 years later, they had a daughter, Emma. Michael was in the conference room when he got the call. He rushed to the hospital. He held his daughter in his arms. He cried with emotion. He went back to work the next day. Sarah pleaded, "Michael, you don't have to prove anything anymore. We have enough money for 3 lifetimes. Stay with us." He replied, "I'm doing this for you, to make sure Emma never has to worry about money." But Emma didn't need financial security. She needed a present father. At 38, Michael had $47 million, 3 businesses and properties in 4 states, and he was completely alone. Sarah had filed for divorce. 6-year-old Emma barely recognized him when he came home. He sat in his office, surrounded by awards and certificates, and felt absolutely nothing. Success tasted like ash in his mouth. One night at 2 a.m., still at the office, he typed into Google, "Why does nothing matter anymore?" That's when he came across an article about Okinawa, an island in Japan where people lived to be over 100 years old. But it wasn't about longevity. It was about something they called Ikigai. The first sentence of the article changed everything. In Okinawa, people don't retire. They don't have a word for retirement, because when you have Ikigai, why would you stop living? Chapter 2, The Forgotten Philosophy. Michael read that article 3 times. Then he read another 10. He bought 4 books, and the more he learned, the more he realized how utterly he had destroyed his own life trying to save it. Ikigai isn't a simple 4-circle diagram. It's not about finding the perfect intersection between passion, mission, vocation, and profession. That's the Western version, the version we've transformed into a career coaching tool. In Okinawa, Ikigai is much simpler and much more profound. It's the answer to one question: why do I wake up every day? And here's what destroys people. The answer can't be about you. It can't be to get rich, or to be successful, or to prove my worth. Because all of those things have an end. And when you reach that end, the void swallows you. Michael read about a 94-year-old fisherman in Okinawa named Mr. Masato. Every day at 4 a.m. he goes to sea. Not because he needs the money. His children are successful and beg him to stop. He goes because the fresh fish feed the community. Because his grandchildren wait for him to return with stories. Because the sea needs someone to respect it. His Ikigai wasn't fishing. It was being the person who connected the sea to the community. It was seeing his granddaughters smile when he arrived. It was feeling that his existence mattered beyond himself. Michael realized something devastating. He had spent 26 years waking up to money. And money doesn't wake up with you. Money doesn't need you. Money doesn't miss you when you're gone. He'd completely forgotten why he'd made that promise at age 12. It wasn't about having millions in his bank account. It was about never seeing that look of despair on his mother's face again. It was about being the man who protected the people he loved. But somewhere along the way, he had traded the tool for the goal. And now he had neither the tool nor the goal. He only had money. And money alone doesn't make you wake up with purpose. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying money isn't important. Money brings many good things, but only to those who know how to control it, not to those who are controlled by it. Money isn't the center of everything. A Harvard University researcher who studies happiness and longevity discovered something revolutionary. The happiest people who live the longest aren't the ones with the most money or the most success. They're the ones whose purpose is connected to something bigger than themselves. When your reason for waking up depends solely on you, you collapse. When it depends on something that transcends yourself, you become unbreakable. Michael scheduled a call with Sarah. For the first time in 3 years, they actually talked. He didn't apologize. He admitted something much worse. "I forgot why I was doing all this." Sarah was silent for a long time. Then she said, "Michael, you've always been obsessed with providing us with security, but we never asked for this. Emma doesn't need a $10 million trust fund. She needs a father who shows up for breakfast. I didn't need a mansion. I needed a husband who showed up for dinner." Those words broke something inside him. Because she was right. He'd created a narrative in his head where he was the sacrificial hero working to save his family, but they just wanted him to be there. He had spent 26 years solving a problem that no longer existed. At 12, his family needed money. But now his family needed him, and he was away chasing more than they already had. Michael realized it wasn't just about family. It was about everything. He hadn't seen his friends in years. He didn't play sports. His health was in tatters, high blood pressure, 60 pounds overweight, sleeping 4 hours a night on medication. He'd stopped going to church so long ago he couldn't even remember the last time. He had sacrificed his health, his family, his faith, his friendships, all on the altar of financial success. And now, sitting in an empty house, he realized the most brutal truth of all. He had won the wrong game. Chapter 3. The Return Day. Understanding the problem is easy. Fixing it is the part that destroys most people, because fixing it means admitting you wasted years, maybe decades, pursuing the wrong thing, and admitting that hurts more than continuing on the wrong path. Michael had two choices: continue accumulating money until he died alone and successful, or do something that terrified him more than anything: slow down. He started with the hardest part. He called Sarah and asked for something he'd never asked for before: a chance to learn to be present. "I'm not asking you to take me back. I'm asking for permission to learn how to be the father Emma deserves, even if it's just a few hours a week." Sarah hesitated. She had every right, but she saw something different in his eyes. It wasn't a promise, it was desperation, and she accepted. Every Saturday morning, Michael would pick up Emma. At first, it was awkward. He didn't know how to talk to his own daughter. He offered to buy her things. Emma didn't want things, she wanted attention. The first time he just sat on the floor and played with dolls with her. Without looking at his phone once, Emma looked at him and said, "Daddy, you look different today." That sentence broke him. Because she was right. He was present. Maybe for the first time in 6 years, but Michael realized something unsettling. He didn't know who he was without his work. His entire identity was built on being successful, productive, wealthy. When you take that away, what's left? This question terrifies everyone who builds their identity on one thing, because when that thing goes, and it always does, you're left feeling shattered. Michael remembered something he'd read about Ikigai. In Okinawa, people aren't defined by just one thing. They are multiple: fisherman, grandfather, gardener, storyteller, community member. When one part fails, the others sustain it. He had built the entire tower on a single column, and now that column was cracking, so he began to rebuild, not all at once. Small steps, microscopic even. First week, Emma on Saturdays, that's it. Second week, started walking 20 minutes every day, not to lose weight, to feel his body moving again. Third week, he called his father. They hadn't really spoken in 3 years. He arranged to meet for coffee. They sat down. His father asked how he was. Michael told the truth for the first time. Lost. His father was silent. Then he said, "Son, you've always been obsessed with not being like me, with not being the guy who lost his job and let his family down. But do you realize that's exactly what you did? You were so afraid of losing that you forgot what you were protecting." Those words hurt because they were true. Michael had spent his entire life afraid of becoming his father, and in the process he became something worse, a ghost. But here the real trouble began, because Michael was starting to change, and the people around him didn't like it one bit. You think that when you change for the better, everyone applauds. But that's not how it works. When you change, you become a mirror, and people don't like what they see reflected back. Michael's partners began to complain. "You're not focused anymore, you're different, what happened to you?" They were right. He was different. He had stopped sacrificing everything for work, and it bothered them because now they were the only ones sacrificing everything. Friends he hadn't seen in years reappeared when he became successful. They disappeared when he began to slow down, because their friendship wasn't with him, it was with his status. The hardest part was realizing that some people in his life didn't want him to get better. They wanted him to stay the version of himself that served them. Michael had to make painful choices. He left 2 of his 3 companies. He kept only one, working part-time. His partners called it insanity. "You're throwing money away," he replied. "No, I've been throwing money away for 26 years. Now I'm buying life back." The financial difference was drastic. And do you know what happened? Absolutely nothing changed in his material quality of life, because when you already have 47 million, earning a few more million doesn't change anything. But having 30 hours free a week, that changes everything. 6 months after beginning this journey, something changed. Michael woke up one Saturday and for the first time in 20 years, he felt something he had completely forgotten, a desire to wake up. It wasn't because he had an important meeting. It wasn't because he had a deal closing. It was because he was picking up Emma, because he was going for a walk with his father, because he was going to have lunch with real friends. He had found his Ikigai, and it wasn't just one, there were several. Emma was Ikigai. Watching her grow, being there for her, being the father she deserved. Health was Ikigai. Waking up without pain, having energy, feeling alive in your own body. His father and mother were Ikigai. Making up for lost years, being the present son he never was. Faith was Ikigai. He had returned to church, not out of obligation, because he missed something greater than himself. But there's one thing no one prepares you for. Even when you find your purpose, even when you rebuild your life, you never completely forget the emptiness. Chapter 4. The Return of the Demon. A year later, Michael found himself in a place he'd never imagined. Happy. Not the euphoric happiness of closing a deal, the quiet happiness of waking up and being at peace. But the human mind has a frightening ability to sabotage its own happiness. One night, he was having dinner with Sarah and Emma. The marriage hadn't come back together yet, but they were rebuilding. Emma was telling him about school. Sarah was laughing. Perfect timing. Out of nowhere, the thought crept in. You're losing money right now. Your competitors are working. You're falling behind. Michael knew this thought. It had lived in his head for 26 years. But now he knew something. This thought was a lie. Because falling behind in relation to what? He already had more money than he could spend. Competing for what? For more numbers in an account that made no difference at all? The demon of aimless ambition never dies. It just sits there, and it comes back every time you're happy, whispering that you should want more. The difference now was that Michael had learned to respond. I already have everything I need, and more importantly, I have what really matters. He looked at Emma laughing, at Sarah smiling, and the thought vanished. But society won't leave you alone. Because when you leave the rat race, the rats that remain get upset. A businessman friend ran into Michael at an event. Man, I heard you've slowed down. Everything okay? Financial problems? Michael laughed. No. I just realized I was running on a treadmill, lots of movement, zero progress. His friend didn't understand. Or worse, he understood and didn't like it. Because if Michael could leave, that meant he could too. And he wasn't ready to admit that. The most uncomfortable truth about Ikigai is this. When you find it, you realize how many people around you are completely lost. And they'll try to pull you back. They'll call you lazy, complacent, unambitious, because your happiness forces them to question why they're not happy with everything they have. Michael learned to let these voices pass because he had something they didn't, clarity about what really mattered. 2 years into the journey, Michael was completely transformed. Physically, mentally, spiritually. He had lost 30 kilos. He was sleeping 7 hours a night without medication. His blood pressure had returned to normal. Sarah had taken him back. Not because he promised, because he proved it, month after month, showing that he had truly changed. Emma was in a school play. Michael was in the front row. He'd skipped an important meeting to be there. 3 years ago, he would have had his secretary record it. Now, he wouldn't miss it for the world. Emma walked onto the stage. She looked out at the audience. She saw her father. Her smile lit up the entire theater. After the play, she ran to him. "Daddy, you came." Michael knelt in front of her. "Emma, I will always come. Always." And for the first time, he believed his own promise. A psychologist who studies end-of-life regrets interviewed more than 2,000 people in recent days. He discovered something that should change how everyone lives. No one, absolutely no one, on their deathbed wished they had worked more. But the vast majority wished they had spent more time with those they loved. Others wished they had taken better care of their health. Others wished they had lived according to their beliefs, not external expectations. Chapter 5. The True Legacy. Michael was talking to his father on a Sunday morning. Simple coffee in his parents' kitchen, comfortable silence. His father looked at him and said, "Son, do you realize that you've finally become the man you've been trying to be all your life?" Michael didn't understand. "What do you mean?" "You always wanted to be the man who took care of the family, but you thought taking care was about money. Taking care is about being there, about being the safe haven. It took you 40 years to learn that, but you did." Those words changed everything, because his father was right. Michael had finally become what he always wanted to be, only in a way he never imagined. He realized something profound about Ikigai. It's not something you find once and that's it. It's something you rediscover every day, because purpose isn't static. It evolves with you. When he was 12, his Ikigai was to protect his family from poverty. It made sense. When he was 28, he should have evolved to build a family of his own. But he froze in the Ikigai of his childhood, and he nearly destroyed everything because of it. Now at 40, his Ikigai was multiple: being the present father, being the son who shows up, being the husband who is there, being the healthy man who cares for the temple, being the man of faith who honors something greater. And there was something new, something he never expected. Michael began to talk about his journey, not to brag but to warn. He saw so many young entrepreneurs making the same mistakes he did. He started mentoring, not about how to make money, about how to not lose what matters while making money. A 26-year-old businessman approached him. Same story. Working 18 hours a day. Fiancé complaining. Health destroyed. "But I need it. My family needs it." Michael looked at him. "Does your family need money or do they need you?" "Money." "Lie. You need to prove to yourself that you are not a failure. Your family needs you to be alive and present." The young man was silent. Then he began to cry, because no one had ever said it to him so clearly. Michael realized this had become part of his Ikigai, to prevent others from wasting 26 years like he had, to be the voice he never had. But there's something about Ikigai that no one tells you, something that scares you, and that Michael discovered the hard way. When you truly find your purpose, when you finally understand why you exist, you realize a brutal truth: you've wasted years. And this realization is not liberating, it's devastating. Michael had this calculation in his head. Emma was 8 years old. He had missed the first 6 years of her life. 6 years that will never come back. First smile, first words, first steps. He wasn't there. He was in a meeting. Sarah was right beside him. He'd been married for 8 years, but never really present. How many dinners, how many conversations, how many moments had he ruined by looking at his phone instead of looking at her? His father was 68. His mother was 66. How many years did he have left? 10, 20 if he was lucky? He had wasted 26 years he could have spent with them, time he never gets back. And his health? The doctor had been clear. The damage was done. He had abused his body for so long that some things never fully return. This is the part of finding purpose that no one prepares you for. The mourning of lost years. The pain of realizing you were alive but not living. Michael had to come to terms with something terrible. He couldn't go back. He couldn't get his years back. He could only decide what to do with the ones he had left. And here's the choice that defines everything. Do you freeze in regret or use it as fuel? Michael chose the latter, but not in the way you might think. He didn't try to make up for the lost years by working twice as hard as a father, husband, and son, because that would be making the same mistake all over again. Excess in the opposite direction is still excess. He learned something that Okinawan centenarians know. Balance isn't about giving 100% to one thing. It's about giving enough to many things. No single thing completes you. You are the sum of all your purposes, 20% for work, because money still matters. It's still a tool. But it's a tool, not the end. 30% for family. Being present but not suffocating. 15% for health. Taking care of your body as a temple. 15% for faith, something bigger than himself. 10% for parents. The time remaining is limited. 10% for community and mentoring. It sounds mathematical, but it's not about numbers. It's about intentionality, about actively deciding where your energy goes instead of letting work consume everything by default. Michael created a ritual. Every Sunday night he reviewed the week, not in terms of money earned or goals achieved, in terms of Ikigai honored. Did Emma get quality attention? Did Sarah feel seen? Did her parents receive a call? Was her body cared for? Was her faith practiced? Was anyone helped? If the answer was no in any area, the next week I'd prioritize that area. No perfectionism, just consistent presence in all the areas that matter. Chapter 6. Death that teaches how to live. 3 years after beginning this journey, Michael received a call that changed everything again. His father was in the hospital. He had suffered a heart attack. Michael dropped everything and went. When he arrived, his father was stable but frail. It was the first time he'd truly seen his old father. Fragility is scary because it forces you to face something. Time is limited. Michael sat beside the bed. His father held his hand. "Son, if I die today, I'll die happy, because for the past 3 years, I've had my son back." Michael couldn't hold back the tears because he realized something simultaneously horrifying and beautiful. If his father had died 3 years ago, Michael would have spent the rest of his life carrying the guilt of never having been there. But he had changed, and those 3 years mattered more than the previous 26 combined. His father survived, but that day changed Michael's perspective completely. Because death is the most honest teacher. It doesn't lie. It shows you what matters by removing time as an infinite resource. Michael began living with a different question. Not, what do I need to achieve, but if I died tomorrow, would I be at peace with how I've lived so far? That question changed absolutely everything. Because when you put death on the horizon, priorities instantly reorganize. That super important meeting? Suddenly it doesn't matter so much. That $1 million deal? Irrelevant if you're not alive to enjoy it. That project that can wait? It can wait. Michael began using this as a filter. Every time he had to make a decision, he would ask himself, if I knew I was going to die in a year, would this decision change? Invest another 6 months in a project that will bring in $2 million? If you have a year to live, the answer is no. Spend the weekend with Emma? The answer is yes, always yes. But here's the scary thing about this prospect. You don't have to be dying to die. Every second that passes is a second you'll never get back. Michael realized he'd spent 26 years living as if he were immortal, as if there was always tomorrow to fix things, tomorrow to be present, tomorrow to call his father, tomorrow to play with his daughter. But tomorrow is an illusion. There is only today. And the sum of all your todays is your life. A philosopher specializing in Stoicism, who studies ancient thought, explains, the Stoics practiced something called memento mori. Remember that you are going to die. It wasn't morbid, it was liberating. Because when you remember that time is finite, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. You live intensely because you know there's no guarantee of tomorrow. 6 months after the scare with his father, Michael was at Emma's birthday party. A simple party, Sarah's house, a few kids from school. Emma opened her gifts, electronics, clothes, expensive toys. Then she opened Michael's gift, a notebook. On the first page he had written, "To Emma, each week I will write something I learned from you, so when you grow up you'll know your dad was paying attention." Emma looked confused. "Is it just a notebook?" Sarah understood immediately and began to cry. Michael knelt down. "Emma, everyone gives you things. I want to give you presents. This notebook will be our story, the story of how much time we spent together." Emma didn't fully understand. She was 9 years old, but she would understand. One day when she was 25, 35, 45, she would open that notebook and see that her father was there. Really there. Michael had learned something profound about legacy. Legacy isn't about how much money you leave behind. It's about how much you gave to those who matter. It's the memories, the stories, the moments that people carry with them after you're gone. He thought of something he'd read about Okinawa. When someone dies there, the community doesn't talk about what the person had. They talk about who the person was. He was the man who always had a story to tell. She was the woman who made everyone laugh. He was the father who never missed a school performance. Identity over possessions, being over having, presence over money. Michael was driving alone one night, returning from dinner with old friends. Real friends, not networking, people who knew him before the money. A song he hadn't heard in 20 years came on the radio. It was the song he and Sarah had danced to at their wedding. He had to pull over because he started crying. Not sadness, something more complex. Relief mixed with regret. Relief that he had fixed it before it was too late. Regret for the years that never return. But in the midst of that crying, he realized something that changed everything. He couldn't go back in time, but he could honor lost time by living fully in the time he had left. Michael had learned to transform regret into gratitude. Because regret paralyzes, gratitude moves. Chapter 7. The True Meaning of Wealth. 5 years into the journey. Michael was 43. Emma was 11. He and Sarah were more connected than ever. His father was healthy. His mother was too. Work was balanced. His health was impeccable. His faith was strong. And financially, he made less money than he had at 38. Much less. He had donated millions. He had invested in causes. He had helped families. His bank account was smaller, but his life was infinitely bigger. One day, a reporter interviewed him for a story about entrepreneurs who slowed down. Final question. Do you regret leaving so much money on the table? Michael laughed. I didn't leave money on the table. I left money in exchange for life, and life is worth infinitely more. But you could have both. No, I tried. Nobody can. You can have more money and survival, or less money and life. The choice is yours. The story was never published. The reporter said the angle didn't work. But Michael knew the truth. The angle was disturbing, because it forced people to question their own choices. It's important to point something out here again. When I talk about having money, I'm talking about people who are already extremely wealthy, or have a very good standard of living, but continue to work tirelessly, sacrificing many things. If your family is going through a lot of hardship, you'll need to work and earn money to help them, but don't forget the purpose that made you start it all. Chapter 8. The Last Lesson. 7 years after beginning his journey, Michael was completely transformed. At 45, he was unrecognizable from the version he had been at 38. Physically, 82 kilos of muscle, very high energy, perfect health. Mentally, peace, clarity, purpose. Spiritually, connected to something greater. Relationships, strong marriage, close daughter, present parents, real friends. Financially comfortable and completely at peace with it. But the most important lesson he learned in an unexpected place. Michael had begun volunteering at a hospital. He talked to terminally ill patients, not to preach, just to listen. A 78-year-old man, terminal cancer, 2 weeks to live. Michael sat next to him. Are you afraid? Of death? No, I've had a full life. I'm afraid I haven't done some of the things I wanted to do. Like what? I wish I had said, I love you more often. I wish I had hugged tighter. I wish I had forgiven faster. I wish I had fought less over things that didn't matter. Those words confirmed everything Michael had learned. In the end, on their deathbed, no one counts money. They count moments. Michael came away from that conversation changed. He called Sarah. We're going on a trip, you, me, and Emma, 3 weeks. No work, no cell phone, no nothing. Just the three of us. Sarah hesitated. Michael, Emma has school. You have commitments. School can wait, appointments can be rescheduled. Emma is 13, in 5 years she'll go to college. How many chances do we have to do that? Sarah understood immediately. When? Next week. They went to Japan. They spent a week in Okinawa. Michael wanted to see for himself the place where Ikigai was born. They met centenarians. They talked to fishermen. They visited temples. And they saw something that only first-hand experience reveals. People completely at peace. A 96-year-old man was fishing on the beach. Michael asked, Sir, what is the secret to a long and happy life? He laughed. There's no secret. You wake up. Do what needs to be done. Take care of the people you love. Be thankful you're alive. Repeat tomorrow. Just that? That's it. The problem is that everyone complicates things. They look for magic formulas. But a good life is simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. Michael realized he'd spent 38 years complicating things, and the last 7 simplifying them. And the simpler it got, the better life was. An anthropologist who's been studying the blue zones, regions of the world where people live to be over 100, for 20 years discovered the secret to longevity isn't in supplements or special diets. It's in purpose, community, natural movement, and stress reduction. People in Okinawa live longer because they live meaningful lives, not because they have access to better medicine, but because they have a reason to wake up. On their last night in Okinawa, the 3 of them sat on the beach. Emma between Michael and Sarah, waves crashing, starry sky, perfect silence. Emma said, "Dad, why don't we do this more often?" Michael looked at her. "We'll do this every year. Promise." "You really promise? Not like before?" That hurt, because it reminded her of the broken promises, but it was also fair. He had to rebuild trust. "Emma, I promise, and if I break it, you can hold me accountable, because now I know what matters." Sarah held his hand. Emma hugged him. And in that moment, Michael felt something he hadn't felt in decades: completeness. Chapter 9. The full circle aus after beginning the journey. Michael was 48 years old. Emma was already a teenager, full of life, full of dreams. She was in the living room doing her homework. Michael came in with coffee. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Why did you change? Everyone at school talks about how parents work so much and are never home. You were like that. What happened?" Michael sat down. This conversation was bound to come one day. "I almost lost everything that mattered, chasing things that didn't matter. And then one day I woke up. Like this." "Emma, Dad had a lot of money, but he had no life. He was successful, but he had no peace. I was winning a game that wasn't worth winning." That conversation with Emma planted a seed. Michael realized he had a responsibility, not just to his own daughter, but to an entire generation heading in the wrong direction. 15 years after beginning this journey, Michael was 53. Emma was in college. He and Sarah were stronger than ever. His parents were alive and well. His health was impeccable. His work was balanced. His faith was strong. His purpose was clear. He was sitting on the porch, the same place his father had sat 41 years ago when he lost his job. He had that look of a defeated man. Michael remembered that moment, the promise he made. "I will never let my family go through that." He had fulfilled his promise, but in a way he never imagined. Not by amassing millions, but by being present, being the safe haven, being the man who shows up. Emma called. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "I ask you." "Always." "I'm dating a guy. He's obsessed with work. He reminds me of you before. What do I do?" Michael smiled. "You show him that success isn't about having everything. It's about not needing anything beyond what matters. You show him that money is a tool, not an end. You show him that life isn't about how much you accumulate, it's about how much you live." What if he doesn't understand? Then you decide if you want to build a life with someone who's chasing the wrong thing. Because Emma, you can have a lot of money and emptiness, or you can have purpose and fulfillment. Both together, rare, very rare. Most people will choose money and will die empty. Silence on the other side. "Dad, I love you. Thank you for changing. Thank you for being there. Thank you for showing me what really matters." Michael hung up, and for the first time in 53 years, he felt like he'd won the right game. Because in the end, Ikigai isn't complicated. It's devastatingly simple. Why do you wake up every day? If the answer is money, status, achievement, you'll wake up empty, even when you achieve everything. But if the answer is the people you love, the health you protect, the faith you honor, the purpose you serve, you wake up complete, even when you don't have everything. Michael had learned the most important lesson. You can spend your whole life achieving and die with nothing. Or you can spend your whole life living and die with everything. The choice was always yours. You just didn't know it. Now you know. If this video changed your perspective on purpose, I invite you to tell me in the comments, what's your Ikigai? Why do you really wake up every day? Be honest, because only the truth sets you free. Remember, no success can compensate for a life unlived. Money is a tool, life is the goal. And when everything seems meaningless, remember your Ikigai. If you've watched this far, thank you for joining us. This matters more than you know. Until the next video.